Hi, this is Chase from C&C Commentaries, and today on C&C Movie Breakdowns, we're going to be talking about The Truman Show. And this is a very exciting episode because not only am I joined by my regular co-host, Nando.
Howdy.
How you doing, Nando?
Not bad. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. We have a real surprise treat in store for this episode.
Oh, do we?
Oh yeah, we do. Did you not read the memo?
Oh no, I didn't. Didn't get to my office.
We also have today a special guest. So drum roll, please. Without further ado, please welcome our special guest for this episode, Rainie.
Hello, you guys. Great to be here.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How are both of you?
Doing fine.
I'm doing swell.
Just glad to be talking about such a important movie.
Our first guest episode. What an accomplishment.
It can only go downhill from here now.
It's just a downward spiral.
But I'm excited to have you on. I think it's going to be a lot of fun talking about this movie, especially from what I know, how much you enjoy this movie. And I feel like we're going to have a really nice conversation, all of us.
I totally agree. I think it's going to be a great conversation.
Yeah. Truman Show is quite the movie. It's one of my favorites.
Oh geez. What do you think is what makes this movie special about you guys? Like what's it so special about, you know?
Jim
Well,
Carrey.
I guess we can kind of get it into that on like how we all kind of like came to first seeing this. I don't remember the first time I saw this exactly, but I remember because I loved Jim Carrey so much seeing this and seeing him do more dramatic because so used to seeing him in like comedies like Ace Ventura or Dumb and Dumber, but seeing him do something like this so dramatic, and
Right.
it just shows how far he can go in terms of performances, and the concept is something so innovative that hadn't been done before, and
Right.
how it, like the direction and how it's all goes about in terms of the story, I think is done really well.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I probably saw this movie a couple of years ago, and yeah, just like you, I a couple of years ago, I discovered Jim Carrey as an actor. I think the first Jim Carrey movie I ever saw was Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, and I just wanted more Jim Carrey movies. After seeing a bunch, I came across this one. As you said, Jim Carrey's usually cast in like these comedies or these funnier roles, but this movie really shows how flexible he can be as an actor. Shows his more dramatic side. And I think it turned out really well. This movie is probably my favorite Jim Carrey movie.
What about you, Rainie? How did you come across?
First of all, I totally agree with both of you. His acting capabilities, able to stretch out from just being comedic, I personally, I have grown up with Jim Carrey my whole life. I've been watching him ever since I was younger. Like the two movies that I owned were The Mask and The Truman Show, and I watched him ever since, and I loved him in The Mask. That was just a hilarious movie. And even though I watched The Truman Show at a really, really young age, it's funny. I mean, I didn't really understand the concept. I was just watching it, and I thought it was just a good movie. I'm watching this when I'm like 6. So I've seen this movie throughout my entire childhood, but not until recently, watching it again after some time did I really come to understand, the importance of this movie and the concept that it's trying to show to the world. So
Of course. And
yeah,
I
so
think that's something that's
interesting.
important to all of us, and I think we all have this special affinity in our hearts for Jim Carrey and what he represents to all of us.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is going to be fun to dive into.
So yeah, but before we start, I'll give a general synopsis.
Oh, why, thank you.
So, The Truman Show came out in 1998, and it was directed by Peter Weir. And it's about a man named Truman Burbank, who's played by Jim Carrey. And it's the story that Truman's entire life has been a TV show, and he doesn't know. It's on like this massive TV set, and the entire movie is about him discovering that he lives in a TV show. And it's quite the journey.
Indeed.
Indeed.
Hijinks certainly ensue.
I guess without further ado, let's jump on into The Truman Show. So Nando, why don't you walk us through this opening scenes and opening clips?
Well, this movie kind of opens on it's like credits, but for like the TV show. So it says like you get all these clips of Truman, and it says Truman Burbank as himself, and then it goes to all the different actors in this TV show. You have his wife, his best friend, and we meet. Or there's a brief clip of the creator of this show, who Christoph is the name of the creator.
Yeah, played brilliantly by Ed Harris.
Yes.
And when you say he was played brilliantly, it was to a point where you just despise him.
Yes, absolutely.
When watching this movie, I mean, you're just watching him, and it's almost hard to watch at some points.
I mean, I'm sure we'll get into this later, but I think when you're watching this movie, it kind of digs into your brain of like, you kind of think like, how could someone go about pulling this off? And if anything, why would they want to? It's a very weird like experiment of sorts for them to try and pull off.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, I think, sorry to jump really far, but at the end, when he's, it almost, although he sees kind of Truman as a character, he almost sees him I wouldn't go as far as to say as a son, but I mean, watching this man grow up, there's a point where he also cares more about the money in the making of it,
Yeah.
which is really saddening to see.
Yeah, I think for sure you feel that like I think there's that contrast within Christoph of both a father-son dynamic between him and Truman, and also the business side of him,
Right.
and wanting to maintain this show going despite Truman wanting to escape from it and find the truth.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
But anyway, we finally meet like our main character for real, and he starts off, he's leaving his house, and you get this, he interacts with his neighbors, and you get this nice interaction when he's like, "Good morning," and if I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. And it's just it seems kind of like a funny throwaway line at first, but it really means something towards the end of the movie. But as Truman's getting in his car to go to work, I think it's a stage light falls out of the sky.
Yes.
And slams into the pavement in front of his house. And so
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, he's just inspecting it. He doesn't really know what happened. But then we cut to him in his car, and he's listening to the radio, and the radio immediately addresses this, and he's like, "Oh, an airplane started shedding parts." And it started shedding parts, and that's why a theater, or a stage light, went down. And upcoming is one of my favorite scenes in the movie, just because of how, like, I really like how it was made and how it was made technically. But why don't you walk us through that, Chase?
Well, like I said, we get this introduction with Truman and kind of him going about his day-to-day, and we start to catch these, little glimpses of, stuff not necessarily, normal for someone's day-to-day life. There's not often times where you're walking down the street and just a light falls and you're like, okay. But he gets confronted by these two gentlemen, and like they look very identical. And they specifically pin him up against this billboard sign. And there's another thing this movie does so well is it includes these little product placements within the actual show and cleverly weave them into Truman's personal life.
Yeah, because as it's later established in the movie, the show isn't making any money from ads. It makes all its money from product placement.
I mean, as do most shows now, and because since they're on commercials, they have to do, sponsorships within the actual show.
Yeah.
Rainie, what do you think about that scene and this upcoming scene of him when he's in his office?
That's the scene. I'm pretty sure that's the scene where he's trying. Well, he's trying to get in touch with Sylvia, right? He was trying to make sure. Well, he's trying because remember how Sylvia, as we talk about later, was like the love of his life, who moved to Fiji, right?
Yeah.
And
Fiji.
And what a abnormal place to move, first of all. But
imagine not remembering that he wants to go to Fiji.
Oh boy.
I think there are more important scenes, but I do think that when he bringing her up, even when he's already married to, I think it's Myrtle or Meryl, one or the other.
Yeah, Meryl.
Meryl, right? And it means she's still a part of him. He's still striving for that connection again, which is really sad. But he's really determined. That's just what I got out of that scene.
Yeah, for sure. I think that you brought up an interesting point of kind of shows how maybe necessarily he might not be actually too close to Meryl, and just shows how kind of shoehorn their relationship together might actually be, in that he might not actually, his heart might not actually be fully there for her, and because
right.
this is an actress, he doesn't know that, but we do.
Right. Well, and that's my question, watching the movie, it's why did Truman stay with her at all? That's the question. Now that I'm thinking about it, what caused him to stay even though he was in love with another woman? I think that's really important to know too.
Well, I'm sure even if he tried to, get out of it, Christoph would find some way to make sure he couldn't leave.
Yeah, and I want to actually expand on that because later in the movie we get that scene where Truman is they're back in high school, and Truman's looking at his future Sylvia, but his future wife Marilyn is just falling all over him. So yeah,
right.
You can definitely tell that Christoph, he's just trying at all costs to get Marilyn and Truman together.
Of course, and towards the end, when Christoph was in the interview with the host about the show, and how he said that the Meryl was going to divorce him, and a new love interest was going to come in. So it's all just part of this huge plan, never wanting it to end, this never-ending cycle.
Yeah, exactly, because it's all just elaborate. I can only imagine the elaborate storyboarding that Christoph has done through these years and years of maintaining this show. And as we find out, sometimes things have gone wrong where he's had to, like, kill off people or change how certain aspects of the show would go. And of course, that directly contributes to what happens in Truman's life and what happens within the show.
Definitely agree. And I think a big part of keeping Truman together, what I think would be his best friend.
Yeah.
What was his name again? What do you guys remember? It was
Marlon, I think.
Marlon.
Yeah.
And I mean, they've even though Marlon's, I mean, kind of faking it, I think that was a way that kind of kept Truman together. But I think what was really heartbreaking, you know, was when he's talking to him, you know, in a certain scene when Christoph was telling Marlon everything, telling him what to say, everything to Truman, and he's saying, I would never lie to you. That was a really heartbreaking scene to watch.
Yeah.
You know, because I think he really does care for Truman, but a part of him is like, I don't, this is my job, you know, I'm doing what I need to do, which is.
I mean, yeah, we get that great scene where they're just, you know, drinking beers and hitting golf balls off the bridge, and, you know, they're just talking with one another. And I think, you know, from the perspective of these actors, specifically Marlon, you know, like, why, yes, he has been hired to, like, do this job and quote-unquote play the role of Truman's friend. I feel like if you spend a certain amount of time with someone, you know, that much time, you know, years and years, I feel like even if you are acting and playing this role, you do start to care about them, even just a little bit.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just this act of companionship, but I do think, you know, there's definitely a difference between Truman's wife and him. I don't really think that the wife had cared for Truman as much as the best friend did.
Yeah, I agree.
I definitely feel like the actress playing the wife treated it much more like a job, and that's probably the reason that Truman didn't care for her as much, and also because he was in love with another woman.
Just two uncompatible human beings.
Yeah.
Just the worst.
And after Truman gets out of his office, you know, he tries to make Sylvia's face using magazine clippings. Like he has that little art piece.
Right.
We actually get told a very important fact about Truman, and that is that he is terrified of water.
Yes.
Yeah,
Poor
so
guy.
Truman tries to buy a ferry. He's like, screw it, I'm going to Fiji and nobody can stop me. But as he's buying this ferry, he has to walk over a bridge to get to the ferry. And he just can't bring himself to go over the bridge. You know, he just is terrified of the water.
Poor guy.
Yeah.
And you feel that emotion so well on his face when he's just standing there holding his little briefcase, ticket in hand, and, you know, like the little ferrymen are just, you know, like, you coming along, son? And he's just sitting there, he's like, nope, and then he just, you know, turns around, but that emotion, just no words at all, of just standing there,
I totally agree with that, Chase. That you know, certain actors are able to express emotion without even using their own words, and just watching that, I just saw, you know, the fear in his face and how it totally took over his whole body. You saw. I just thought that was incredible. I mean, in not even just in an acting perspective, that's just, I think that was really a good one on Jim Carrey for doing that.
Yeah. And I think, you know, since we've kind of brought up this whole fear of water, and, you know, we can kind of go into, you know, his background and why this is the case. And because we see, Truman kind of sitting along the waves afterwards, after talking with Marlon, and him kind of reflecting on his past. And so we get like these flashbacks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're like him and his father they're out fishing in a little boat on the ocean, and then Truman who was a kid, he's like, "Oh, Dad, let's go out and get a couple more fish before we go home." But then a storm sets in, or Kristoff sends in a storm, and Truman's father ends up like getting thrown overboard, and Truman thinks he drowned, and that's a very evil thing to do to a child. Truman blames himself for his father's death for the rest of his life, or
Right.
the majority of his life.
And
I mean, and it. Or
Oh,
you
sorry.
go ahead, Rainie.
Go right ahead, Chase.
Oh, why, thank you. I just think it's important to remember, like, this entire town is a soundstage practically.
Yeah.
And anything and everything can be controlled by Kristoff at will. He can control the weather. He can do whatever he pleases.
Yeah.
And we see that later when just randomly, just it starts raining on top of Truman and nowhere else. And I think that's another great scene.
Yeah.
Continue, Rainie.
I was just gonna say, it was really subtle, and it definitely wasn't the highlight of the movie. But what Fernando was referring to when he was sitting on the beach. He just makes a slight gesture with his arms and like just covering his whole head, because he feels so regretful for believing that he has to blame for his father's death. And I just saw that, and I almost felt his emotion. Like that was just like, I thought that was just really heartbreaking right there. Like just the little gestures that actors or actresses do to make the watcher feel the emotion, and I felt his emotion through the screen. So just a brilliant performance he did in those couple scenes there.
Yeah. But we get another instance of, we get actually two more instances of product placement. Something I like to point out is that whenever his wife does product placement, it's really creepy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Especially in the Coco scene later on in the movie. But for this one, I think she's showing off like a knife of some sort, and we get a close-up shot of her just giving like this little advertisement. He's like, "Oh, this knife can cut anything, and it's childproof." Yeah, and then later when they're on the bridge scene, Truman's best friend Marlon, he holds up this beer and he's like, "This is the best beer."
Right, I noticed that too. I saw that. That was, jeez.
Yeah, because if you're thinking about this from a technical standpoint, Kristoff has to include product placement where it's not too obvious, and it's just kind of creepy how they're just shoving advertisements in this man's life.
I mean, and
Definitely
Truman notices that later with like the
Coco.
and he's like, "Who are you staring at?
Yeah.
Who are you talking to?"
Yeah, he's like, I think
these people are looking at the camera and literally telling us.
I think the exact line is, "Who the hell are you talking to?" Because nobody
Right.
grabs Coco and it's like, "Oh, why don't you have a cup of this?" And all organic, no artificial resources. And like, who talks like that?
I think the hardest thing to watch, and like I said, I watched this movie when I was a child, and so I didn't really understand the concept of what was going on. I just saw it because I saw Jim Carrey and I thought he was amazing, but just watching him go in, making it look like he's going insane. It was just, it made you want to just go to him and be like, you're right, you look insane, but you're not. And I think that was really hard to watch. People throughout all the doubt that everyone told him, he still stuck to his gun, but it made him look crazy.
I mean, I could only imagine like what any of us would think if we found out anything we ever thought we knew about our lives was manufactured for a TV show.
Yeah,
Right.
that'd be insane.
Like, that's something just so... And for him to go through that and
Right.
realize, like, oh, okay, so nothing I know is real. Anybody I know probably doesn't really care about me. It's just... It's like such a... It's like more than a gut punch, you know? It's like basically being stabbed in the gut repeatedly and just being like, all this doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah.
I am curious though, because I'm, although movies are like I love connecting to movies, but personally, score music is really dear to my heart, and I love learning about it and learning different composers, and I'm really curious as to what your guys' thoughts about the specific music that was placed in this movie, because the composer was Philip Glass, I'm pretty sure, and I noticed that the music was really articulate, and it was placed in different scenes, and I was curious what you guys thought about that.
Yeah, I definitely felt that way. I thought it was used pretty well. You know, it was used in good places, good moments. I don't really think that the music, really took over the scene, but I thought it was
Right.
just a nice addition.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. Because like sometimes, I've mentioned this before, but like scores can kind of, if a score is like too bombastic, it can take away from a scene and not make it feel as emotional. But I feel like, especially with this score, and like towards the end, too, it feels a lot more like uplifting, and it still feels kind of like joyous and hopeful for Truman,
Right.
and I really enjoy that about it.
There's this one specific music time when it was the first scene when Truman and his best friend were golfing on the bridge, and it was just this really creepy music that it's really unsettling, and I just listening to it, and I keep thinking about it, and like, why did they put that music for that moment, and I mean, I don't know if you guys remember the specific music during that, but it was just this really, just like I said, this unsettling kind of music, and I just thought that was really interesting, the way that they place certain music for different moments. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't remember that exact moment, but I feel like, with like there are some very like haunting moments in the score, but I feel like, like why they probably did that is because, like, if you think about it, this is a pretty creepy thing that they're doing for Truman.
Yeah, having
Right.
his every moment be watched.
Having his every moment on camera without his knowledge, that's like, while it might not technically be illegal because Christoph bought the rights to Truman, but
Yeah, that's really creepy to think
it's
about.
weird. I mean, I think from a certain angle, if you wanted with this story, you could take this in a horror direction by just Truman going off the rails.
Right.
Like, what are they gonna do if Truman turns into a serial killer? But
We should probably go into like this flashback scene of him, meeting his wife and Sylvia.
yeah. So, it flashes back to what he was in high school,
This is college.
and Marlon and his wife are there, and they're all talking, and what are they, in a library?
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course, there are
It
the
was, yeah, I think it was the night before. It was the night before finals.
Yeah, the night before finals, and it was they were all in the library, and Truman's studying, but eventually, his wife and his best friend, they leave him to his studies, and but he's sitting next across from a girl, and they kind of like look at each other, and they start to talking, and then he's like, "Oh, let's go get like pizza or something."
You speak Japanese?
Yeah. You get that. It's kind of like, yeah, it's kind of like a really creepy clue. She's studying Japanese, but when he says konnichiwa, he has no idea what he's saying. And so she slips him a note, and she's like, if we need to talk, we need to do it now. And
Right.
they run off to the beach and they're talking, and she tries to tell him the truth, and she's like, Truman, everything is fake, it's everything is just fake.
But how could you possibly understand in a moment like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if somebody ran up to me and was like, your entire life is fake, everything you know is a lie, I'm gonna be like,
Oh, Nando, I have something to tell you. Your entire life is fake. This recording is fake. None of this is real.
Not even the sand.
yeah.
One little thing that I think is important that you didn't say was her little button, her little pin she has on,
The button.
and it's it's like, how's it going to end? And he's like, I was wondering that myself. And I think he's directly saying that to the camera too, unintentionally, and it's just like, it works for both the movie itself and then also like the context of the flashback within the show, because every time they do a flashback in the show, they show like putting in old tapes
Yeah.
of previous episodes, and it's so good
And,
because you see like bar patrons watching.
and I think what you said about the button, how it relates to him in a lot of different ways. It was almost to life in general. Like, and I did really like Truman's response. He's like, well, I was wondering that myself. It was just a very very flowy way of expressing the reality. Very interesting.
Yeah. But Sylvia, a person claiming to be her father, takes her, and he tells Truman, oh, we're moving. She has like schizophrenic episodes, don't believe anything she says. And Truman's like, oh, where are you going? And he says Fiji. And so
Fiji.
that's why Truman wants to go to Fiji. He wants to find or follow Sylvia. And so that kind of, yeah, definitely like breaks his heart, for sure. And then we get another scene of Truman kind of trying to construct Sylvia's face from newspaper clippings, and that's just something that's like very sad. He misses her so much. He's just willing to try to do anything to try to see her face again. It's almost like he's scared of forgetting her.
Right. That's a really good point. That's a really great point.
He's just,
I mean, you probably think that Christoph's probably tried to erase all possible aspects of this woman's life.
Yeah, because
of this episodic break that she had.
Yeah, she went off script. That wasn't how that episode was supposed to go. It's just now Christoph wants to eliminate her from everything. And that's just sad.
And now that it kind of just abruptly came to my mind. But I mean, thinking about this movie, it relates to life so much, like how you just said, like how literally she wasn't a part of the script, and it kind of just happened. That happens in life, like where you don't think something's supposed to happen, but it kind of abruptly does. And in Christoph's eyes, it shouldn't happen. But Christoph says, this is the truest this is the truest this show is as ever. But is it really? Not really. If it was, he would have let them be together. If you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sense of irony in that the most genuine moment probably on the show was one that doesn't want to happen at all.
Right.
it needs to be by the script and how he wants to run it. And I also think this is, you know, it's an interest. This movie's also, an interesting like satire on like reality TV itself. And this came out in 1998, and we've only, had more and more reality TV shows as time has gone on. But I think it shows like, it digs into that odd obsession that I think most Americans were starting to form with like viewing other people's lives that are what we are told to perceive as reality is probably just a bunch of scripted and pre-planned stuff.
Right.
It's commenting on that aspect.
Yeah.
Totally agree with that, Chase.
And then Truman starts another day. He goes to bed, but as he's driving in his car this time, on his radio he picks up something weird. So instead of the normal radio chatter, it's people chatting about his whereabouts. He's in his car, so they're like, oh, he's turning on this road. Oh, he's turning left. And then somebody eventually catches on, and they're like, oh, he can hear us, change frequency. And it's just a little knot unraveling on the whole scheme. He's starting to get a little bit more aware. So
right.
Now Truman's like a bit spooked, so he's just kind of looking around on his circumstances, and he's looking around.
He's starting to understand more, but he's also starting to go a little more crazy.
Yeah, you kind of get like Truman doesn't know if he's actually figuring something out or he's just going insane. So eventually he goes in the middle of traffic and he like holds his hand out in front of traffic and makes everyone stop. And
that was pretty powerful. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Watching that, I mean, him believing that he's just God for a couple seconds. He's just like, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Jim Carrey as God. How unrealistic.
Never seen that one
never
before.
Makes sense for a movie.
Never will happen in the history of humans. Totally impossible.
But you said he starts to see everything unravel, and he's like, he goes into a building, and he tries to go in an elevator, and he like kind of like sees behind it's like not an elevator, and it's just like people on a break from set. And then, like, there's these security guards causing a ruckus, trying to, be like, sir, you need to leave. And, like, he goes to meet up with Marlon. And, Marlon's just, stalking a vending machine. And, he's trying to convince Marlon that this is going on. And he's like, in his mind, I imagine it's like, well, if my own best friend won't believe me, no one will probably.
Yeah.
Right.
And immediately, like, you can see the level of trust that he has in Marlon because he goes to him, and I think the line is, I think people are following me.
Yeah.
So, he just assumes that Marlon wouldn't be in on it.
Right.
And, they have that scene where they're sitting on the sand together, and they're just talking about how, like, good friends they are. And...
Something that... Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, please continue.
Well, I was just going to say, obviously knowing that, we were going to talk about this movie, I was trying to be a little more, I try to see things more and like little perspective. And I did notice that I think every time that they were alone together, they actually talked, about kind of a little bit about reality. I think, so the first time when they were on the bridge, they were talking about you don't have to leave to find yourself or something. And then when they was on the sand, it was I don't remember, but I noticed that even though the conversations that they both had together, it was something it wasn't about the show. It wasn't about their lives. It's had something to do like on a deeper level. And I thought that was really really cool to see that even though he is an actor, they connected, and it was kind of this, it was a subtle sort of interpretation for the viewers to see, kind of to realize in their own lives, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think Marlon is the only one he can like have a real conversation with, besides Kristoff at the end. But yeah, I agree fully with what you just said.
Yeah. And then after that, we get this scene of it's Truman, his mother, and his wife Marilyn, and they're all looking at this photo album, and all of the photos are from like Truman's like various like, yeah, it's just photos from Truman's life. It's photos of their wedding day. It's photos of Truman when he was a kid, and you know, it just shows like how long this show has been running. They've literally watched Truman from birth. It's just very creepy to think about.
Right. And I think that they I think they did set that up though, to make sure the mom and the wife were there, you know, kind of snuggling with him and showing all the pictures. And I think that was set up by Kristoff though, because I think they noticed that Truman was starting to catch on, and I think they were trying to keep him together, you know, and trying to kind of distract him, because then moments later they brought up, oh, when are you guys gonna have a baby? Yeah. You know, because they all talk. I mean, they're all actors. They talk to the director and they should know what's going on. And so I think that was kind of a moment to try and have Truman forget about what was going on and kind of be collected, so that he would kind of distance himself away from trying to discover what was going on. So that was good move by Kristoff.
I mean, and then we get this scene where he follows Meryl to work, and Meryl's a nurse. And this scene to me is just, it's like, it's so chaotic and also like so back and forth, because, you know, he's trying to follow her and, you know, like make sure she's actually doing her job. And then like Truman like is bumping into nurses and patients, and, you know, like carts are being rammed into him. And I just like, you know, it really makes you think like these people playing these roles, like this is like the ultimate improv job.
Yeah.
And also it's like, I doubt these people are medically trained.
Of course not. No.
So it's just like,
they're just some
what happens if someone gets injured?
No, yeah, there's no way. You know, I mean, because when Truman, you remember how he gets into he finally gets into the room, and they're all nervous because they have to act like it, and the guy that quote unquote performing the surgery, he doesn't know what to do, and so he has to pretend like, and it shows one of the nurses is holding up like a sheet, so it's not showing Truman that they're actually cutting into the knee. You know, it was very hilarious watching that.
Yeah, for sure. And so yeah, these guys obviously don't know what they're doing. But then we cut to Truman at a travel agency. And
where does he want to get a ticket to?
Fiji. And something interesting in this flight, like in this travel agency, is that all the posters on the wall are like anti-flight or anti-travel posters. So like you have one, I think it's like lightning shooting through a plane with like, it could happen to you. And another one's like, oh, terrorists might come in, or you'll get mauled by wild animals. And
yes, get mauled by wild animals in the middle sky.
Oh yeah, it like listed, like it was like bullet points of what could happen.
Yeah, it's just like, you know, obviously they would not hang this up in a real travel agency.
Yeah.
It's all put there to scare Truman away. But the lady tells him, like, oh, we won't be available for a couple months. So then Truman decides to improvise, and he buys a bus ticket. And so, they're on the bus, and people are giving him these weird looks because, he's the star, he's famous.
Mm-hmm.
And especially, I think there's that one little moment where a little girl on the bus is like, "Mommy, there he is," and then the mom immediately hushes the kid. And but the bus driver is like, "We can't give this guy a bus ride to Fiji," and so he breaks the bus, and so he's like, "Well, everybody off, bus is broken." And something really interesting about this movie is that, once in a while this movie will cut to actual people watching the show live on TV.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So it cuts to, like, the 2 security guards. It cuts to the ladies in the bar. And sometimes it even cuts to people in, like, I'm assuming Japan.
Yeah, Japan, China,
Yeah.
I think.
So it just shows how worldwide this show is.
And how engaged.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they say it. They're like, this is like one of the highest rated shows, and like, people don't want to miss a single second of what's going on in his life.
Yeah, because the show is on 24/7.
Yeah, and like, if this was a real thing, I could only imagine the cultural, like, how big something like this would be if this was an actual thing.
Yeah,
so it's very.
People even have, like, Truman pillows and things like that. Like, I imagine Truman would be a very rich man when he gets out of the show.
Right. And when Sylvia's watching, because she's just totally anti everything about the show, and you notice in the back of her room, it says, like, free Truman, and it says anti-Truman Show, like, and it said, like, Truman, anti-Truman Show rally on the December, like, 18th or something like that. Like, she was determined as much as Truman to find each other, which is pretty adorable if you ask me.
I mean, it really makes you think, like, how many other people are probably out there, like, watching this, or either are, like, in the town or watching this in other parts of the world, that are also, like, in the same train of thought as Sylvia, with thinking how wrong this is that they're doing this to him.
Yeah, it's a bit
right.
of
but are just not saying anything.
And just thinking about it, like how we kind of brought up, the signs in the travel agency with trying to keep them from traveling, and it shows later in the movie, or should I say the show, later on, when it shows what the directors did to try and keep them away from even traveling, just in general, like the dog, like what that can do to a person psychologically, and like the difference between like, just like us, having that opportunity to do something, and this, he's had to grow up with all these, just in the classroom, when he's like, I want to be an explorer, and just being put down. Like, over time, that does something to your brain, and obviously it wasn't real, but it does show, it kind of explains, like, why he kind of went psycho, for good reason, obviously, but it's really chaotic, and he deserved, obviously, to leave, but just the different aspects of those little things that happen to you,
Yeah.
And we'll touch on this a bit later, and I think we can touch on it a little now too, but
you mentioned Truman going psychotic.
Well, yeah, you brought up a good point about, like, his mental state, and, like, this is all that he has known, this faux life.
Right.
And then at the end, when he, inevitably is freed, it kind of like lets you think, will Truman actually be able to handle himself
Adjust.
in the real world
Yeah.
and adjust
Right.
to this
Truman's fate
outsiderness.
is left open-ended. It's just, there's no follow-up. Like, we don't know what happened to Truman. It's just left
I couldn't
open-ended.
imagine it being easy.
Yeah.
And Kristoff's in Kristoff's world words, him him saying at the we're already talking about the ending, but I'm just saying,
I think we can get into the end. We can go all over.
all right, okay, but at the end, he's just all like, Truman, it's worse out there than here. This is a perfect world for you. Like no, it's like, I mean, actually, I take it back. I mean, there is no perfect world. I mean, Truman felt, felt the heartache in the perfect world. He felt like sad, and it's just, I bet, we talked about, I bet it was probably a really hard adjustment, but it's, you can't be kept from the perspective that the world is perfect. And I understand Kristoff when he's saying that, but he's also, a 30-year-old man, But
I think in terms of like perfect world for Truman, I think it's like perfect in terms of like, Kristoff isn't gonna let anything happen to Truman. As long as Truman is within this, literal bubble, nothing bad will happen to him for a long, long time. And it kind of like, any uncertainty that could happen within his life won't happen. It's all planned out. But if he leaves this space, he's subjected to things he wouldn't previously have been subjected to.
Right. And but what? That's the question. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, these are actors, so that, they're pretending, but I mean, in the world that he was in, I mean, we saw his father died. I mean, quote unquote, saw his father die at a young age, and we saw tension between the wife. It's like, no matter what state are you in, could you really put yourself in a place where it's perfect? I don't think so.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think, Nando?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you guys. It's just, yeah, you guys basically said it all. Yeah.
I guess we could, Fernando, why don't you like take us into like these two main confrontations with Meryl? You've got this like joyride scene, and then afterwards the Coco promo.
This is definitely Truman's psychotic break. He's just sitting in the car, and Meryl comes home, and she's like, gets in the car with him. She's like, "What are you doing?" And Truman's looking in his rearview mirror, and he notices that the exact same car and the exact same person are passing on like a rotation. So he realizes that things are looping around him. He's starting to pay more attention. And Meryl's like, "Oh, you're being silly." And, she just kind of brushes it off. She's like, "Oh, come inside." But then he pulls the car out, and he tries to go down the road, but he's immediately blocked by traffic. So he backs up, and they're just going around like a little fountain area. And, Truman's starting to kind of break, and he's like, "Oh, don't worry, we'll just leave, we'll go wherever." Yeah, he's like, "We're going to Fiji." And so yeah, you can definitely see him starting to break, but eventually we get to the bridge. And there's this bridge, and of course it's over water, and Truman's like terrified.
Is it a bridge over troubled water?
Nice one, Chase.
But eventually he just closes his eyes and he slams on the gas, and then he's like, "All right, you drive." And so they're just kind of like zigzagging along this road, Meryl's trying not to slam this car into the middle into the side of the bridge. And they make it across, but the show's creators are still trying to make sure he doesn't leave, so they set like a fire in the middle of the road, but Truman just goes straight through it.
No care at all.
No, he's lost it at this point. But then they continue on, and then a bunch of like officers and people in hazmat suits are just blocking the road. And one of the police officers walks up to Truman and his wife Meryl, and then he's like, "Oh, sorry, you can't go here. The power plant leaked." So it's just more and more obstacles in his way. And an interesting detail is that the cop, when he says, he's like, "All right, bye, Truman," and he says his name, even though he shouldn't know his name. Mm-hmm. And Truman, that definitely gets a look. So Truman just runs, gets out of the car, and he runs. And eventually, the guys in hazmat suits tackle him, and they deliver him back home. And also, that scene was always really funny to me, because you'd think that the people that would be chasing Truman are the officers, not the specialized guys in hazmat suits.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, that's just another element, like they just decided to make anybody go after Truman. Then we get probably my favorite scene in the movie. It's, so Meryl and Truman are back home, and Meryl's like, "Truman, you need to get help. You're losing it." And then she says, "Oh," she holds up like a little bottle of cocoa, and she's like, "Why don't you have a scoop of this delicious cocoa?" And he's like, "Only made with organic products, no artificial flavors," in a really just creepy way as the camera zooms in on her. And Truman's like, "Who the hell are you talking to?" Because, like, he's realized, like, that's an advertisement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, he starts to get, like, a little more nervous and panicked, so he's, like, walking at her, and she's like, "You're scaring me." And she grabs a knife, and she points it at him. But he grabs...
Specifically the one that she's advertised.
Yeah, the one that she advertised earlier in the movie. And, you know, he grabs her, and, like, he's, like, holding the knife now. And so she screams, "Help me?" Or she screams something like, "Somebody do something."
Oh, yeah, she said, "Do something."
Yeah, and then Truman's like, "Who are you talking to?" And Meryl's like, "No one." But they send Marlon into their house supposedly looking for Truman, but we know they just sent him in. Because it was, you know, because Meryl was in a bunch, and
right.
There's another really good line, because when Meryl's like crying at this point, and she runs to Marlon, and she's like, "How can anybody expect me to work like this?"
Right. I noticed that. I couldn't really make out what she was saying, you know, because she was just sobbing. But, you know, she was saying about the work environment and, like, how she couldn't really handle it.
Yeah.
I mean, it just shows that this actress playing Meryl is also as snapping, but in a different way to Truman. You know, she's now had to put up with I mean, from her shoes, like in that car ride and all this is like 2 separate times where Truman has practically killed her. And so she's an actress, and in her mind, you know, like, is this worth it to be put through this stuff in this role as his wife?
Yeah, I mean, she's committed.
Right.
Like, you gotta think about, like, the logistics of these. These actors must be getting paid a ton, because...
I don't even know if they're getting paid a ton, but,
because, like
just to set it all up is...
They're committing, like, a majority of their life, because, you know, they are a majority of Truman's life.
I mean, unless they get killed off, this is their life.
Oh,
there is no difference between real life and acting for them.
Speaking of killed off characters, this next scene.
Beautiful transition.
I know, I'm the best.
Couldn't have done it better myself.
So, you know, Marlon and Truman are just they're on the bridge again. And, you know, we get that line, like, Marlon's like, "I would never lie to you." And Marlon's like, "I got a surprise for you." and he shows somebody walking on the bridge, and it turns out that it's Truman's father. And something especially creepy about this moment, because the filmmakers, they could have just had Truman like hug his father and just shot it normally, but instead they zoomed out and actually showed Christoph and the Truman Show team like making it more dramatic,
Right.
because Christoph is ordering people around. He's like, oh, get a close-up on Truman's face of him crying, rise the music. Christoph is just, he has such a cold, and like he just wants to make this moment as dramatic as possible for his viewers.
Well, and I think that was a really, I think, as the director of making this movie, it was a really important time to do it, though, because it showed the viewers, it's that this is a really heartfelt moment for Truman, but to Christoph and to all of these people, these are just chess players to them. Although Christoph and these workers may have a little bit of feeling for Truman, they don't really care at the end of the day. I mean, at the end of the day, they see money signs.
They're looking at what'll make the best television for the audience.
Right.
And like I think this is like what I imagine. Like Christoph is setting up in this moment a giant cliffhanger, and we hear about it later when he's being interviewed on the show. Like, what was the big decision in bringing back Truman's dad from the dead? And it's, all he cares about is, not necessarily adding to Truman's story, but what'll make the biggest twists and turns for the show itself.
Right. Yeah. It's really sad. It's you kind of just want to go in and just yell at him, But the guy who played Christoph just did a really wonderful job. It was a really good performance by him.
Yeah. And then we get to one of the creepiest scenes in the movie. After Christoph, the team are like, they're praising Christoph because of how good he did. Then we get kind of like almost an ad for the Truman Show, like the show itself.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows like clips from the past. It shows Truman as a baby. It shows, I think there's like there's an article about how when Truman takes his first step, like a bunch of world leaders got together and watched it. There's clips of Truman growing up, and there's a bunch of pictures of newspaper articles in a ton of different languages.
Well, I think that was because Christoph was in the interview.
Yeah.
Right. And it was just kind of showing the viewers of the movie, it kind of tied a lot together, because what Truman's experiencing now in his 30s, it wasn't just then, like with the falling from the light falling from the sky, or people saying things and seeing the elevator. No, this has been happening at a really young age. He just hadn't really noticed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it talks about, like, he's in this interview process, and, we see these clips of, like, first step, all that. But, as Truman gets older, of course, he's going to have to, manufacture, more big events to occur in his life, because, when Truman's an infant, of course, people are going to tune in for, like, first step, first word, all that stuff. But, kind of shows, like, how now Christoph kind of has to just keep upping the stakes, in a sense. And,
right.
With this interview, I find it real funny, because the interviewer is played by Harry Shearer, who, does voices on The Simpsons. He's like Mr. Burns and all that. And so I just found that really funny. But it kind of talks about, they get into like how they've had close calls in the past with like people breaking character, and there's this little scene where someone pops out of a Christmas present.
Yeah.
He's like,
He's
Truman,
like,
you're on
yeah,
TV.
I did it. I'm on the show.
And there's another one where a guy parachutes in, like, and we get this cool zoom out and we learn that the Truman Show set is the biggest set in TV history.
Yeah.
And it shows that some guy has parachuted down, and he has like this sign, and it's like, Truman, you're on TV. He's trying to expose the secret, but it doesn't work.
Yeah, those are some funny moments, definitely.
Yeah, this movie, although it's quite serious at times, it does have some elements of comedy in it. It's got some good bits.
And of course, you know, coming from Jim Carrey, there has to be. Just it's Jim Carrey. That's kind of his reputation, as being the funny guy. Of course,
Yeah.
there has to be some sort of commentary in that aspect from him. No matter how serious the movie is, you know. It kind of like just little things, but just starting off with, in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, good night. Just like little things like that, and his little laugh where he kind of like cocks his head back and is like, very very like him, indeed.
Then we get one of the most interesting scenes in this movie. It's when Truman is taking, or not Truman, Christoph is taking calls in this interview from viewers, and one of the calls he actually answers is from Sylvia. And she's talking to him, and she's like, "Oh, this, like, you're keeping Truman prisoner, you know, you don't have the right to do this." And then Christoph is like, "Well, if Truman really wanted to get out, if he wanted to find out the truth, then he would. But Truman wants to stay in his prison because it's a happier world."
Right.
Yeah, but Truman wouldn't even know that because he hasn't. This is all that he's known since like the moment he could open his eyes. So he would not know.
He doesn't know that an outside world exists. He thinks that this is the entire world. Like he understands the concept that there are other countries and other places. He just thinks he's never been. And that's just crazy to think about.
Right. Yeah.
There's this. Or you go ahead.
Oh, no. Go right ahead.
Oh, I was just going to bring up a little thing that I love. I love this shot of Truman sleeping, and then just Christoph standing there, and, you know, Truman's face is on a big screen, and, you know, it's like green from the camera, and...
I was going to say the same exact thing, Chase.
It's just, there's something so...
beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful, and, like, kind of haunting about it, because, you know, we see it, like, on people's TVs, and then we see it blown up on this big screen with Christoph looking at it, and it's kind of like just Christoph, like, you know, right now, and then more so even at the end, just, like, marveling at his creation of this show.
Yeah, it's, you know, there are many great scenes in this movie, but that's one of my favorites. And like I said, how I'm more into scores of music and of movies and whatnot. That specific music, it's called Truman Sleeps, obviously, but it's like this peaceful, like beautiful, wet in the situation, you know, because it's dark and it's just Truman and it's just the director, you know, and I think, like how we kind of talked about, Christoph majority, you know, just takes this show without any without really caring, but like I think that moment kind of shows that he does have this, that has like this tiny piece of caringness towards Truman, and that moment I think really shined for that.
Yeah.
It's definitely.
this movie definitely has a lot to talk about, you know. It's just quite the concept and quite the execution.
Right.
I mean, I guess, Nando, why don't you, like, get us into this ending and this big climactic, you know, boat scene, and how Truman kind of finds a way to get free from this reality.
Alright, okay, so the next scene is, I really like this next scene, because it's, Truman wakes up and he's just in his suit and he goes to work and he just acts normally. You know, he even says that line like, oh, and if I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, good night. And he just goes through his normal work a day. And something interesting to say is that Truman, or Christoph, in the interview, he's like, oh, Meryl will be leaving Truman and a new love interest will be introduced. And we actually see Truman's new love interest at work.
Right.
And so, you know, you think that, oh, maybe Truman really did think he went crazy, or maybe Truman, his mind, like, repressed the memory or something. He couldn't handle it. But we see that Truman's gone to sleep in the basement. And, you know, and Christoph is like, you know, the people that are watching, you know, the 24-hour cam, they're like, oh, he's just sleeping. And Christoph comes in and he's like, he sees something and he realizes that Truman snuck out. Truman tried to hit Christoph with the old Alcatraz escape technique.
You know all about that.
Oh, yeah. Try to hit him with a fake dummy while you're sleeping. But obviously Christoph already knew that one. And...
Well, I was gonna say, remember, you know, I think they thought, or Christoph, they thought that Truman had kind of gone back to normal because his dad returned.
Yeah.
So they thought that, you know, that Truman's, you know, mindset over this whole thing would go away once his dad came back, and he would have gone back to normal. At least that's what Truman wanted them to think.
Yeah, because I think that was intentional by Truman. He lulled them into a false sense of security by acting normal.
Most definitely.
And so everybody kind of goes at panic. You know, they send in Marlon, the best friend, but it turns out that Truman isn't there. You know, then they start like a whole set-wide manhunt for him. And you know, it's just, they're just trying to figure out whatever they can. And you know, and one of the times that somebody in their show speaks directly to the camera, Marlon's like, I can't find him anywhere. And so Christoph does, like, he does something that's never been done before. He shuts off the show. And
dun, dun, dun.
And, like, you know, people all around the world are freaking out because, like, the show has, like, never been shut down like this.
Yeah, this is the first time the feed has stopped.
Yeah. And
which I can only imagine that electric bill.
Yeah, that's gotta be gigantic.
And I loved Christoph's commentary about it. He said he's getting more, like, viewers over the stopping of the show than he would when it was actually running, which I thought it was funny.
Like, people are
tuning in. Yeah, and I think he realizes
that,
you know, like, this could be a big publicity stunt for the show. And I think he tries to maneuver it to that.
And so Christoph gathers, like, all the extras, and they all, like, go, like, kind of they kind of lock elbows in just to make sure that they're just sweeping everywhere. And there's just, everybody is after Truman. It's a manhunt. And you know, they can't find Truman, and they're like, where could he have gone? We searched everywhere. So eventually they just decided, they're like, screw it, we're making it daytime. And so I think it's like 3 a.m. in their world, but they're like, screw it, and they switch it to daytime. And obviously Truman, he knows this, and he's like, the jig's up, you know. He knows something's up. And then we see Truman on a boat. Truman has obviously,
out of all places.
That's the one place they didn't look, because they're like, oh, Truman's terrified of water. But Truman he's conquered, or at least he's conquered his fear for now, and he's on a boat. And Kristoff doesn't like this, so he tells them, he tells like the people working with him, he's like, oh, make a storm. And so they do, and the boat starts getting rocked, but Truman is fine. But then Kristoff is like, make it bigger. And then the people there are getting kind of hesitant because they're like, he could actually die. And Kristoff, I think one of the best lines in the movie, he's like, well, it was the first birth on television. I figured we would get the first death on television.
Right. That was just crazy. And
I was like, wow, this dude really is a terrible dude.
Well, yeah, he just goes, well, the guy says, you don't want this guy dying on television, and he goes, well, he was born on television. Like, oh my god.
Yeah.
What a horrible human being.
But eventually, through sheer determination, Truman manages to weather the storm. And I really love Truman's progression in this movie. I think this movie is a great example of character arc and character progression.
For sure.
Yeah. This is just a testament to his progression of how Truman finally conquered his fear, and he finally almost like forgave himself for his father's death. But eventually, he manages to weather the storm, and Kristoff shuts off the storm. And Truman manages to get his boat, and he hits the side of the stage. So Truman, he now knows that he's in like some kind of stage area. And there's this really good moment where he reaches out and he feels the edge, like he feels the wall. And I was like, wow, that's just powerful.
So powerful. So powerful.
And eventually he finds a door, and Kristoff kind of gets on an intercom of some sort, and he starts talking to Truman directly. And there, as you said earlier, there's those elements of father-son bonding. And,
right.
It's just powerful. Like, Kristoff is like, Truman, you get to decide who you are now. Like, you can either leave the show, or you can stay. Like, leave forever. And
honestly, I think though, he wanted. I think there was definitely some sort of manipulation there with Kristoff towards Truman, because he wanted Truman to feel that way so that he could stay, which is really selfish in a way, and really, like I said, manipulative.
Yeah.
Really sad.
And the last line Truman says before he opens the door and leaves the show, he says, well, if I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. And then he leaves.
And then when he lets off his bow, and he's walking up these steps, it's like almost like something out of like a painting almost. And then he just closes this door, and it's just so beautiful. It's just a perfect way to close it all up and close off. It's it's symbolic of him closing this chapter of his life too.
Right. Like he doesn't have to live like that anymore. It's like you said, Chase, it's very symbolic. It's very and very beautiful.
Agreed.
Yeah. Then we kind of get like this montage of people. Like these people, like there's a ton of people. Like we get shown these shots of people watching the show, and we get shown like this guy in a bathtub, the bar. We get these two security guards and Sylvia, and Sylvia's like crying. She's happy that she left. The guy in the bathtub is like, he's like punching at the water. And he's excited. The people at the bar start cheering, and the two security guards, there's a little social commentary on the end of this. This show's been running for like 30 years. They just witnessed this this event that's like historical and
monumental.
Yeah, monumental event. And then they're just all casual, like, oh, what else is on? It's a bit of social commentary at the end.
Right. It's just like their that life doesn't really matter to them because it's not their life, you know.
Yeah.
I definitely like. Sorry to cut you off.
Then the credits roll, and that was the Truman Show.
That's the Truman Show.
That's it.
What a fantastic movie.
What a great movie, yeah.
This has been a really fun and insightful talk.
Yeah, it has. It's, this movie, definitely one of my favorites. This movie has a lot to say.
I guess we can go into final thoughts, and then afterwards we'll do our ratings. So, Nando, why don't you start us off with final thoughts?
Well, for final thoughts, the Truman Show is honestly it's one of my favorites. Actually, it's probably tied with The Mask for my favorite Jim Carrey movie. I really love this. This is a bit of more serious Jim Carrey movie. It really shows his acting flexibility. And I think this movie is technically well made. I think it's a very interesting concept, and how it would, like, they could have taken this in so many different directions, but I think this execution of this concept was amazing. And I think this movie was made well technically all across the board. And honestly, this is really good movie, one of my favorites. What about your closing thoughts, Rainie?
You know, and I totally agree with you, Nando, and everything you just said. You know, and like I said, you know, after, you know, how I used to watch this when I was younger and not really understanding it, after watching it just recently, I didn't, you know, the concept, the different, you know, symbols and recognitions about reality and life and how it can be perceived. Like the director just did an amazing job, you know, just the casting and putting the movie together, you know. So they, like you said, Fernando, they could have gone in a completely different direction. They could have made this a horror film for all that could have happened, you know. But just the subtleties and the just the certain way that that they wanted to show this movie, they just did a fantastic job, and it's definitely on my list of favorite movies. Definitely. What about you? And what about your lasting thoughts, Chase?
Oh, why, thank you. I concur with a lot of the same points that you guys said. This is one of my favorite Jim Carrey roles, and I think this is probably my second favorite performance of his. I have a special place in my heart for his performance in Man on the Moon as Andy Kaufman. But it's such a damn good performance Jim Carrey gives. To go from, you know, from this time before of him making this movie, of being known as this slapstick comedic guy, to really be able to showcase what he can do dramatically. And I think that's something people take for granted with a lot of just comic actors in general, that a lot of comic actors can do drama very well. And like you guys said, just the story is so original and captivating, and I think it provides a lot of fun ways about going through the genre, and it allows the director to kind of explore different techniques with, like, the camera, and it's great.
Just great.
Yeah, great.
I would probably rate this movie. I'm not gonna give it the 10 out of 10 spot just yet. I think it would depend on my mood but I will give it a 9.5. It is so damn good. Nando, what would you rate this movie?
Honestly, I'd give this movie a 10 out of 10. It's just one of my favorites. Great across the board. I honestly I can't find something I didn't like about this movie. It's just great. It has a lot of social commentary. It's beautiful. What about your rating for this movie? What'd you give this one?
Literally you said it perfectly. There's just nothing wrong with this movie. Like just they could not have picked another actor to play Truman Burbank. I mean, Jim Carrey just perfectly. I have to give it a 10 out of 10. Just everything you said, it just across the board, just on point, just perfect.
All right.
Well,
Well,
I guess that wraps up this episode.
That concludes this episode. Our very first guest episode. A very special occasion over here. Thanks for coming on, Rainie. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate it a lot.
Thank you. It was so fun. I'm glad I was chosen for this movie. Definitely.
Well, if you've listened this far, you can like the video. If you liked the video, you can subscribe. You can do all that crap that every other channel tells you to do. I'm sure we'd appreciate it. Let us know your thoughts about the Truman Show in the comments below. I guess this is goodbye from me, Nando.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. Goodbye, everybody.
And we'll give our final closing out to our guest.
Well, if I don't see you guys, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Aw.